Is that working now? Really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're back again now on Facebook, on Twitch, and on YouTube. So that's okay.
The
Sorry
screen is
for that.
black on.
Yeah, but that's okay. That will come back. Don't worry. Sorry, where were you at?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Well, first of all, maybe for those who are joining now or those who have been sitting patiently waiting for this to actually go live. Hi, I'm Kathrine. I'm sitting here in Frederiksberg in Denmark. And Carl, you are actually French, but you've been volunteering for the Dutch team in Eindhoven. And
Exactly.
where are you sitting right now?
In Eindhoven, really. Just finished flying yesterday late at night. I think I was doing a letterbox flying until 11 or something. But today not really relaxing, but more stressfully waiting for the election results.
For sure. And again, for those of you joining, please ask your questions if you have any questions in our live stream. We're also really interested. Also, we're on Twitch and we're on YouTube, so don't hesitate. And I'm a European candidate for Valg Denmark, and we are collecting signatures for the European Parliament. So if you like what you hear tonight, please share and please tell your friends that there is actually a European party trying to change the way politics is being done, and it is called
Yes.
Volt. And on that note, I would say I'm going to ask you, Carl, when you were on the streets,
Yeah.
is there a delivery service in the Netherlands that's called something similar to our political party?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Is there a food delivery service with a similar name
Oh
in the
no, no,
Netherlands?
no.
No. Okay.
At least not that I know of.
So in Denmark and in a number of other countries, that there's a company called Volt, but with W, Volt.
Really?
And they deliver food, and who doesn't like that? So
Yeah.
we've just embraced it and said, well, we deliver political solutions. So
I
Ah,
think in
that's
France we have the same with Bolt, that is
with the
like you,
B,
yeah,
yeah.
with a B, and it's drivers taxi driving. So that's
we're, it's not just a political struggle;
yeah,
it's a marketing struggle.
yeah.
Good stuff. But I mean, we're obviously here because we are counting down to the first exit poll, which is coming at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
So we're pretty excited. And while Carl and I are sitting here together with Antoine online, we will also be joined throughout this broadcast by some of our volunteers in Utrecht, in the Netherlands, where all of Volt Netherlands and all the volunteers are joining together to follow the results. And it is pretty interesting. So, Carl, obviously, you're in Eindhoven. You've been following the discussions and the election debates quite closely. What are some of your biggest takeaways?
I think that one of the biggest takeaways from this election is really how the country's moved to the right. Um, we've seen, I think, the left, unfortunately, I think will get really a lot less seats than the previous elections. The NSC took a lot of votes, for example, from D66, a lot of dissatisfaction with the previous government. And D66, which is similar, also a pro-European party, so similar to us, will lose a lot of seats. And a lot of those will go to this new party that maybe some of you have heard of, the New Social Contract Party, led by Omtzigt. But also a lot of voters from the VVD, so from the previous government, so from Mark Rutte, is going to the Wilders, so the far right guy with the weird hair. You may have seen him on social media.
Yeah.
So he's quite far right, anti-Islam. So those are things that we're seeing. And I think just generally a distrust of government, I think a lot of people feel not represented. And I think that's something that we're seeing all across Europe as well.
So this is still an issue because we saw and we've been hearing about the right-wing turn in
Yep.
Europe, and it brings me back to 2016, 2019 when Valg was first being founded, which was literally a response to the right-wing turn in Europe, the disgruntlement with European and with EU institutions. They weren't actually helping the people, and now it's like we're revisiting that period. And even after we've just seen a period where we've had incredible solidarity around Europe with COVID-19, we're really struggling to try to make sure that we support Ukraine the best way possible. And of course, when it comes to climate change, we need to work together. So what has been some of the selling points, you might say, from the right side or from those parties who lean more to the right, more conservative, perhaps
Yeah.
more national parties? What are their selling points that people like to hear?
Well, I think really, and this is across Europe, and this is something we have to deal with as a Volt, is immigration. You know, the cabinet fell apart on a law on immigration, to do with how to deal with the family reunion issue, and how to reduce immigration, and that's what the government broke upon, and so that's been a key issue throughout the elections, and they really the far right, so PVV, Partij for the
Mm-hmm.
Freedom, really played on that a lot, and I think a lot of people have a lot of frustration that we've seen throughout Europe. So that's the first thing, is immigration, and the second thing is housing. The housing is a huge housing crisis in the Netherlands. Housing is becoming very expensive and unaffordable, and yeah, sometimes the far right will tell you that it's because of immigration, etc. And so those often are also linked together.
Oh, look who's jumping in.
Hi.
Hi, Sasha.
Okay.
So,
with no
just one thing,
further-
we can't hear you, okay? So we can only have a conversation with you by signs. So can you do us a sign if you hear us correctly? Yeah? Okay, that's is the sound good quality?
Is there a lot of background noise? Is there noise? Some noise.
It's okay. Okay.
But we have a beautiful Volt pop filter.
Yeah, we have a good Volt microphone.
Are you able to turn around your camera, or are we going to have to hold the screen towards?
So what you're
Okay,
seeing
so
here,
give it to me, and then
I think for you, Kathrine, you can also write some text in the chat, and I think Giovanni can see the messages if you write. Because you need to tell us when we need to stop, basically. Or you can also mute us if needed.
now we have to find someone to talk to.
Okay. So if Kathrine doesn't say that we have to stop right now.
well, we just need to make sure
Okay.
that all our listeners, all our followers actually also understand what's happening right now. So this is what you're seeing now is live from the Utrecht election celebrations, and we've got Sasha on the ground.
I think they've been muted.
And we've been so.
Can we unmute them?
I don't know if that's possible. You can't unmute someone else.
Oh, they need to unmute themselves. Okay, I'll
So
tell them
they-
that they're muted.
Okay, great. This is going very well.
As you can see, this was very well
It's
planned.
live. It's live. Oh, no. It's live.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, who are we with
Yeah.
now, Sasha?
Yeah. Okay, hi everyone. Hi everyone, I hope you're good. And thank you for Antoine and Kathrine and Carl for organizing this super nice Twitch event. I'm with Cedric. We are here at the event in Utrecht tonight for the election night for Volt Netherlands. There's a lot of noise, but we have a nice microphone. So Cedric, tonight, what's your expectation? How do you feel about the election night?
Yes, I must say I'm very nervous, and I think most of us are very nervous.
I think we are all very satisfied by our campaign. We have done everything we could, but well, the context was a bit difficult with a lot of strategical votes. So we really don't know what is going to happen. And but I definitely hope we are going to grow.
Okay. I think they also already explained a little bit what's the stake tonight and what's the different political parties' strength.
It's a longer story.
What do you expect tonight in terms of seats for votes? Even though we will know only the result about 9 p.m.
Well, 2 years ago we got 3 seats, so I definitely hope that we are going to grow because we have to grow. So 4 seats would be fine. I personally hope for 5, but well, if you see the polls, we are between 3 and 5. So let's see.
Okay, thank you. I think we can stop now and do another interview later. Thank you, guys. See you later. See you in a minute.
This is very. So I think Sasha was truly embodying the spirit right now. Just do it. Just jump in there and just get active. And I don't want to alarm anybody, but I think that is really still a very very core mentality of how vultures engage both politically and also just socially with each other and making sure that we can work together across borders, can collaborate easily. It's simply such a core thing. But what I think, Carl, before
Yeah.
Sasha jumped in, you were talking about the different political parties and a little bit of the right wing turn in Dutch politics and why that
Yeah.
might be. You mentioned housing and migration.
Yeah. Do you want me to continue on that?
Yes, please.
Okay, yeah. So as I was saying, housing and migration are 2 topics that were really taken into put on focus. Of course, that's something that also the GroenLinks and PvdA and also us, we talked a lot about. And yeah, that's evidently something that pushed a lot of people to the right. And I think also just a dissatisfaction with the way the current government was. And yeah, and obviously, of course, the housing and migration obviously link a lot to that dissatisfaction. We saw skyrocketing housing prices. I think, especially for younger generation, but also for older generation, finding housing has become extremely difficult. And migration has been a constant issue, but especially within recent years, even more. Last year, in August, we had a lot of immigrants coming into the Netherlands, and the issue was that there wasn't enough places for them. You had people sleeping on the streets, and it was a very big scandal because the Dutch government was just very unorganized, and so there's just been a continuous discussion. And I think on this, something we need to change is, change the narrative on immigration and take control of that narrative. And that's something that we need to do in Volt.
So what was the you might say what is the solution that is being proposed? Because we always talk about how we need to be supporting each other across Europe, and refugees and asylum seekers and migrants, all 3 different categories of people. We want to support them, we want to help them because it's a reality. We have migration, we have asylum seekers, we have refugees. So what was their proposal? What is our proposal when it comes to our policies in the Netherlands, the Valg policies?
I think the difference between ours and theirs is really focused on getting voters. So in my opinion, it's very short-term thinking. It's mostly we need to reduce immigration, and that's the core of their message. We will limit immigration. We will stop immigration, and that's kind of the message that they're sending. And I think that's not a good way to look at it. Like you said, immigration is going to happen, and we need to really use a European solution to this. And I think, to that's what we are proposing in Volt. Is a humane but European solution to this, and working together. And I think that's a very powerful message that we should be doing, and we are doing that. And I think, for example, by working together, by showing, this is a problem not only in the Netherlands but in Spain, in Germany, in Greece. it's a European problem, and we have European solutions for that.
Amazing. I'm trying to get back into Sasha now. I hope he is going to join us.
Yeah.
Certainly followed the conversation so far, as I understand it. Oh, it's 30 seconds, he says. It's a little, we're trying a little bit to coordinate here. But I suppose I'm very interested to hear. We're trying to get an answer from one of the people in Utrecht right now on what we're talking about housing,
And
about
here they
migration. Here they are. Let's see whom Sasha has found. He's still muted though. I'm wondering if perhaps Antoine has the capacity to
Yeah,
both
that's okay.
unmute.
No, I don't. I have no capacity, but they will do it.
Bon nuit. My name is Giovanni. I'm standing here with Sjoerd, one of the candidates for the parliamentary elections, and we're going to be asking him some questions. Sjoerd, how do you feel being here tonight?
Oh, that's a difficult question.
Yes.
It's a mixed feeling. On the one side, I'm very exciting. On the one side, I'm very exciting because it's over finally. A long work with all of the people, all of the volunteers, all of the teams. And then the other side, I'm really tired as well. Again, a lot of work, a lot of effort. So it's really a mixed feeling.
And some of the people watching were interested in what your message during this campaign has been on housing and climate.
On housing and climate, well, to be fair, my message on housing and climate is very little. As a topic, I chose particularly inclusion. Inclusion is really my topic. So my message on inclusion was very important. And my message on inclusion is that we need to work together, collaborate as Europeans, follow examples from different cities, from different countries, in order to make a real European movement happening.
And migration?
What about migration? I think we should have a more humane migration policy in which we start acting like people are decent people as well. And we need to respect the human conventions, the UN conventions about this. And treat humans like they should be treated, as humans.
Very good. So, final question. What is your expectation for tonight?
I'm a little bit worried, to be honest. Yeah, I'm sorry.
For yourself or for us all?
For us all. I think one of the things that the Dutch election in the last few days showed us is that a lot of people are driven by fear. Fear for climate change, but also fear for more right-wing populist parties. And I think what we should do is unite and make a strong movement towards a more integrated and better European Europe.
Fantastic statement. Thank you, Sjoerd. Enjoy your evening.
Yeah, it's a little complicated because we can't really ask questions. We can only hear what they're saying, so we're trying to kind of coordinate. But I think both what Carl was talking about before and also what our friend here in Utrecht was saying, that it's been a really hard campaign. And perhaps also because there has been so much uncertainty. I suppose you mentioned that only 40% of the electorate knew what they were going to vote just last week. So still a lot of unanswered questions. And how did that? I mean, you were on the ground, Carl. So like, what was some of the kind of you might say, what were some of the questions that you got on the street when you were campaigning?
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I don't speak that great Dutch yet, so I didn't get a lot of chances to really interact with a lot of people. But like I said, a lot of people asked us our policies on migration. A lot of people asked us, but also on climate change, especially for progressive voters. That's a very important message. You know, we talked a lot about what drives people to the far right, but there's also a very big concern, especially about in the young generation, about climate change. You know, and how we're going to address that. And I think, you know, our message was always it's a European solution, and I think that's something that's really sets us apart. Is yes, we can solve it in Netherlands, but we need a European answer to climate change.
And everybody says that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, everybody says that, but what does it actually mean? Because I think we know what it means, but in your mind, what does it actually mean?
Climate change on a European
Yes.
level.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's really working with each other. I mean, for example, each country has amazing strengths in different areas of climate change we can really use. I mean, take one of our examples is fix the energy grid. We've got a lot of solar panel energy, for example, in Spain that could be better worked through the continent. We've also got lots of investments that could be better worked throughout the EU. Nuclear energy, for example, something that well, France at least we feel strongly about, and Netherlands, but also take really making a more ambitious plan on the EU level.
And what do you
Those,
think is?
yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but what do you think has prevented that from happening in the past?
Yeah, each individual countries has a lot of influence in that, and so we've been really working with unanimity, and that's also hindered a lot of progress because one country says no, we can't have it like this, and another country says no, we can't have it like that, and that's usually led to a lot of watering down of resolutions. But also, I mean, and this will be important in June, is the Parliament. The Parliament has also watered down a lot of resolutions. I mean, take the nature restoration law. We had a really great proposition come out of the Commission, and that was really watered down when it came to the Parliament. So we also need a very, much stronger progressive movement in Parliament as well as in individual countries, to have a more progressive and ecological voice. So yeah, these are some of the things that we want to change.
Because I think when you ask me
Yeah,
about that question, just to wing it back at me on this, the conversation that we have involved is just it flows in a different way, is my
yeah,
experience, than what we see when we have the European Council leaders, the UCO happening, when we have the parliamentarians work in the European Parliament. It's like, for me, what really drives me towards Vault is that, hey, here are some issues, let's fix them,
yes,
and not be so political about it, but be actually, these are the root causes to the problems. Let's attack those.
yeah,
And what I find is when we go out into the debates and we stop the bullshit, and I'm sorry to be swearing here, but when we simply talk straight out of the bag, and say climate change doesn't respect any borders. So let's stop thinking about a national solution to an international problem.
exactly.
And that's very basic, but it also certainly motivates me personally, but it also drives a different narrative forward. And
Yeah,
I'm just curious whether, because this was a national election that you guys had in the
yeah,
Netherlands, so how were you able to switch it up and promote the European mindset within the campaign?
yeah.
Like, how did you do that?
So this was a big issue during the campaign because we as a party were really disappointed by the lack of Europe in this election campaign. Lawrence and the party leader from CDA had a debate, a
Who is
Europe debate.
Lawrence? For those who don't necessarily know
Yes,
who
of
Lawrence
course.
is.
Lawrence Dassen is our list leader, so he sits at the top of the list. He was our member of parliament from 2021 to now. And he's also been the face of Volt Netherlands, doing nearly most of the media campaign and really being active in media. So for us, he's really the face of our party, and so he's really been trying to make Europe part of discussion. But unfortunately, what we've seen is that parties have focused more on national issues and kind of forgotten to talk about Europe. And
That's really
yeah,
interesting. Sorry, because you have Frans Timmermans, who literally dropped out of the European Parliament to go back into the Netherlands. So I actually thought, oh, brilliant, we're going to have a European parliamentarian, an
yeah.
experienced one, even a Spitzenkandidat. So why wasn't Europe like higher on the agenda?
Well, I think for Frans Timmermans, he really focused a lot on the Dutch politics, and of course he mentioned European, but it just wasn't at the forefront of the messaging.
Hmm.
And of course, if he gets elected, I'm sure he'll include a lot of things about the Dutch elections. But you know, yeah, it just wasn't in the debate, you know. And I think, yeah, it's a shame, and that's something that we're changing. You know, even if we don't get 15 or 20 seats or leading, by being present in the process, we're already pushing people to vote more for, talk more about Europe, you know, talk more about European issues.
Yeah, because you might think that both, like for example, the topic of migration, you want to have, Europe's open borders, the freedom
Yeah,
of mobility, the four freedoms of the European Union. You might think that when a topic like migration has been such high up in the discussion, and I think that was also kind of reflective of what we saw from the first guy that we interviewed in Utrecht. It was like migration. You could almost feel like it was such a big thing in the debates. Like it's almost like, it's such a, like, let's just treat people nicely, right? That
yeah,
was really what I felt from him. Like, let's just be good people. Let's just stop being these people who, like, stop people at the borders and you can take care of yourself and stuff like that. Like, and the solidarity that we need to address needs to happen through a European mindset, because like that's our network. It's like, you live in a housing, you live in a building, and if you don't ask your neighbors for help, you're a little bit of an idiot, because
yeah.
they're right there. You should ask them for help.
No, exactly.
But I mean, it just surprises me, I suppose, that there wasn't more of a logical step towards, we've got these transnational challenges, let's solve them transnationally
Yeah,
by looking to our neighbors, for example, for help. Um, but so I want to say, because we've got some of our Scandinavian viewers on the YouTube link as well, and you mentioned Geert Wilders before, and we're gonna get in 1 minute or so. No, actually, we're gonna get. Oh, perfect. No, we're gonna, in 5 minutes. We're gonna get someone else from Utrecht to come in. Thing. But you mentioned Geert Wilders and how
yes.
there's now strategic voting going on in the Netherlands to keep him and his party out of the decision making process, or what's the aim here?
Well, I want to present this in a way, because I and I think a lot of authors in the Netherlands will agree that strategic voting in the Netherlands does not make sense. So, but I'll first explain why people are doing strategic voting. In recently, in like I would say past 3 to 4 days, as a result of some good debates, or people think good debates from Geert Wilders. So again, to summarize, far right, anti-Islam, anti-immigration, and unfortunately anti-Europe, um, really went up in the polls. So he jumped from around 19 seats early November to 29 seats in the last poll. So a real big jump. And as a reaction, what we saw is a lot of people obviously were scared of this. And I think this is something that someone else mentioned from Utrecht. You know, a lot of people decided to vote for GroenLinks out of fear of a far right party becoming, taking the first place. So you had this strategic voting for to vote for GroenLinks, which is the Green Party, and PvdA. So they are running as one party, the Workers' Party, to prevent the far right from winning. But for some context, this in the Netherlands, this doesn't really make sense, because you need to get to 76 seats. That's the amount of seats you need for a majority. And it doesn't matter if hopefully we have a center left coalition. At least this is my opinion, so personal opinion. But it doesn't matter whether we have 20 seats for GroenLinks and then 6 for Volt, or 26 for GroenLinks or 0 for Volt. Either way, a center left coalition will only have 26 seats. Obviously, there are more parties, but as an example. But it's unfortunate, I think, that a lot of people have decided, we're just going to vote for GroenLinks because then they're the biggest party.
I do find it quite interesting with the idea of strategic voting, because it's like this one vote out of
Yeah,
millions of votes. So if you really have to almost go into a cartel or something, and that kind of defeats the whole purpose of democracy: one person, one
exactly.
vote. So, so the whole idea of strategic voting, it's basically just another way of saying vote for me because the other guy won't give you what I will. But in
Exactly.
this case, it's just generating fear. And the reason why I highlighted our Scandinavian, our Swedish followers here on the live stream is because we've seen something similar in Scandinavia as well, but with two different options or two different outcomes. So in Denmark, we had we still have, honestly, a quite a right-leaning government. Now even the center left is now also leaning right. So we're tilting. It's quite bad, in my opinion. But in Denmark, there was a sense of, well, this is what the people want. So let's try to listen to what it is that they want, and then by trying to addressing the issues that they talk about, let's try to address those issues in a like socialistic and as this gentleman was saying in Utrecht, in a humane way, rather than catering to the populistic them
Yeah.
us kind of narrative. So by addressing the core issues like, oh, will I be able to have a house when I'm old or something? By addressing those issues, they were like, "Oh, yeah, I am. Okay, then there's no need to vote for those who are, causing concern and a very populistic viewpoint." And so in Denmark, the extreme right is now a bit of a joke, and they're picking up these super extreme right attitudes, them and us, and blame those people and stuff like that. But they're quite extreme now on the extreme right, and so they don't have the same impact as they have anymore. Unfortunately, it just means that all the other central parties have moved right. And
Yeah.
and I think in Sweden, what was happening in Sweden was that they tried to actually, or they succeeded in excluding the right wing party, which by the way was quite right wing. They had to exclude some Nazis from the party as well,
Oh
so
wow.
it was quite out there. But what they basically did was they said we're not going to work with them at all, which meant that they didn't address the issues that they were uh, 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 talking about, because they didn't acknowledge that this political party and their followers had any legitimate interests or issues that might need to be addressed. So looking at that, taking that Scandinavian experience into the Dutch situation, like how will Valg policies address the core concerns that have been raised by the extreme right? Like what are our solutions to those issues?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's quite a complicated answer, unfortunately, because it was nice. If it was easy, I think we could have just explained it also a lot easier to people. But I think really, there's a lot of frustration, I think, going on with politics, also because, the way things have done. For example, wages have been stagnating. Houses become more expensive. Immigration has become a bigger issue, and I think first of all, a lot of things can be done better on a European level. I mean, we raised this before, but it's so relevant. Working with our neighbors, working together on the big solutions, I think it is one way to go about this. But also to recognize, the failings of our current system. In our European program, we point out, just looking at GDP growth, that's not enough anymore. There are lots of other social welfare things that we should be looking at, and take into account when we think about policies. And so I think it's really so thinking European, thinking beyond just economic growth, revisiting that idea of how we see things, but also integrating climate change with the new social change as well. All those key factors which need to be done at a European level. But I see we have another interview ready, so I'm gonna.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah, they can hear? Okay, perfect. Hi everyone, so we are Sasha and Sasha. Sasha. Both Sasha. So Sasha, you were co-president before for both Netherlands, right?
Yes, I was.
So how is it tonight? How do you feel it?
Well, everybody's a bit nervous. This could really be a very big night, and I'm so proud of whatever we've done to get here. But people are a bit tense because these are very strategic elections, and despite everything we've done, it could go either way.
Yeah. Of course.
Yeah.
And you have campaigned a lot in the streets. You were a lot of people this time involved in the streets. How was the campaign experience this time?
It was actually a very nice campaign because even people who said, no, thank you, I have my own party I want to vote for, they knew us. And it was very different because we didn't have to explain who we were. And so this was very, very positive. And there were so many people who said, like, yeah, this makes sense. And that gives a boost to people who are campaigning.
That's nice. And indeed, positive is one of our slogans, and that's the way we want to do politics. Despite having a harsh political landscape as well in the Netherlands, a lot of parties have been here. A lot of new parties have emerged also during the campaign. How was it for Volt Netherlands to be able to campaign positively despite this harsh political landscape?
It is difficult because it's really politics is about one-liners and making sure that you get noticed. And we are very much about content and policy and being positive. And the only thing that you notice is that people appreciate that you're not pushy, and that makes them prepared to listen to you. So it does have a good effect. But sometimes it's difficult to get through, especially in media, if you don't have all these really harsh one-liners. But we stick to who we are and we grow gradually, and we'll see where we get.
Indeed, and we see the growth tonight. That's a very, very nice event. We're very proud that Volt Netherlands is so high. What would be one advice that we would give to other chapters also to achieve such growth?
I think it's just talk to people around you. You get a great response if you just explain why you do what you do and why you support Volt. And then you get one other person to come along. And that's how we grew in the Netherlands. Just one person at a time who also got one other person, organize events. And then you get to this.
Thank you very much, Sasha, and see you around in the evening.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's always nice to get these. It's always nice to get this input from the on the ground team.
Yes, it's really interesting to hear from everyone.
When she said
well,
to
in
have one
this
person
case,
at a
they're
time,
saying that there were a couple of speeches earlier on, so we didn't get a chance to hear what the speeches were about. But I think what you were mentioning before about migration, about these core issues that really, are an interest to people. I can say that in Denmark, I think Antoine was doing a sound check. Okay, okay, wonderful.
When Sasha said to have one person at a time and that makes Volt Netherlands grow, I was thinking it was like a Ponzi scheme, so I was like, yeah, okay.
Well, that would require a whole lot of merchandise to be resold, and I don't think we're we're not really. We don't have that many stickers. That's not.
That's too bad.
Yeah. No, but I mean, there's also a couple of people online like following us now, and um, the next challenge after this is the European elections in 2024. And this has really been, I think, for all of Bulge Europa, like for all the Bulge chapters all over Europe, I think following how much work the Dutch campaigners and the volunteers have really put into this campaign. As you say, there are 25 other political parties, 26 in total, running for the election. So it really is also about, catching people's eyes and being in the media and the one-liners, and we're just not a one-line party. Unfortunately, that's just not who we are. But how do you feel after having been on the streets? How ready do you feel to repeat that when we're going into the European elections? Because that's coming up soon as well.
I think in the Netherlands we're super ready. Obviously, we only need a few weeks to recover. But I think one thing that we've really got going on here that's great is we got so many local, amazing local teams, and that's really what this campaign was based on. Obviously Lawrence was very, very good in the media, but our local teams is what it built this. We're a grassroots movement, and so we had so many people going there. Early in the morning, late in evenings, putting flyers in letter boxes, or talking to people, and that's something that we're going to use. But we also have, one thing that we did that was amazing was our Glow event. It was a European event in Eindhoven. We had people from Germany, from Belgium, and I think that's something that we can take into the European elections, is really supporting each other's chapters in campaign events. I think it's a daunting task, but we've never been so prepared. Um, in 2019, we just got started. We got one MP elected, and now 4 years later, we're 5 years later, we're a lot bigger, and I think a lot of optimism and a lot of energy is going to go a long way. And like our interview, we just said, it's one step at a time.
Yeah.
It's a big process, but I think we can do it.
What was the I'm not sure that everybody caught that when we just started out here at 8 o'clock. We had a few connectivity issues just in the beginning, but we did talk about the similarities that there might also be in how this Mr. Omtzigt from a former party, that he skipped out his old party and formed a new party, and now he's soaring in the polls, and dropping down again apparently. But we saw something similar in Denmark as well, where a former prime minister actually dropped out of his old party and formed a new one, and now he's a foreign minister of Denmark. But is it like, what is the biggest challenge as well when it comes to catching the attention of the population and the media? Because with social media taking such a big change, you have Twitter, which is dying. You have Facebook, where we don't really know where that's going. You've got Instagram that might be selling all your data. Those are kind of the more popular avenues. We're on Twitch tonight, which hopefully more people will start to use. We're also on YouTube. It is still a popular platform. But which, like where did you actually go to catch people's attention?
Yeah, for this election, we did a lot of, real life, on real life flyering and campaigning. But we also, did a lot of Instagram content, a lot of Instagram clips, kind of explaining, things here and there, and on Twitter, of course. I think what you're seeing, is a lot of content being kind of in an algorithm for especially for younger kids, and obviously all the social media is mostly for younger kids. And what you're seeing, unfortunately, is a really also leading to large rise in the far right, in that, because there's really a bubble going on where you see certain type of content a lot. There was this really sad poll that was going around Twitter in the Dutch media landscape. There was a poll in a school, so 18 and younger, and the largest party in that poll was the PVV, so the far right party, and the second largest party was the Forum van Democratie. So perhaps some of you have heard that, it's FVD, which is anti-democratic party, formed as 2019, but grew really with the the anti-COVID movement. And so what you're seeing, I think, is a lot of this capture of social media of the far right. They're really using, for example, your TikToks, your Instagram reels, really targeting a younger generation. And so I think this question around social media, how can we use it on one hand to reach all our audience, but at the same time, as you mentioned, there's a lot of reasons not to use those social media platforms, because a lot of them are either manipulating, using our data, or just not positive platforms that we want to to use. So I think it's a complicated situation, a debate that we're having also in Volt Europa. To how do we reach our campaign? And I think that's something that we don't really have an answer for yet, I think.
Okay, we have. I'm just chatting in here now. We've got Sasha's got Ben from the campaign team, and I'm hoping we can get some answers from Ben as well on
Yeah.
how he's viewed social media. and they're going to go on in 20 seconds. So it's very exciting. Get excited, guys, out there in the cold, dark night of November. Also, in 10 minutes or in 8 minutes, we're going to get the first exit poll. Do we have a link for that, Carl? Where do people go?
I can
find
send
the,
in the NOS link in the chat.
Great.
I have an
Perfect.
eye on the.
Hi, excuse me to stop. Can we go? Yeah, the sound is good. Okay, thank you very much. So I'm with Ben right now. So Ben was in the campaign team, right? You were on the spot to coordinate all the teams. So big stuff. Congratulations anyway for all the energy that you spent, etc. We wanted to know a little bit more about the what you did in terms of media campaign, of the digitalization, etc. What's the result and what did you do during this campaign?
Sure. I think one of the most important factors for us is that you see our youth in the content we put out. So everything is fresh. We work with colors that are not too heavy. And our messaging is that we do not point fingers. We're trying to show young people a positive future. And that is something that we try to reflect in the content that we put out. Purely in an organizational way, we invest a lot in our social media campaign. It was just announced that 73 million people in the Netherlands have viewed our videos. That's obviously a lot for a country that has 17 million people living in it. So it shows how much we invest in it. And I think with the target audience that we have, it's very effective as well. You see that a lot of people watch our videos all the way through. And I think that's because the messaging that we have is positive. People want to listen to our message because it's different to the style of politics that they're used to in Europe. And I think that is why this is a party that can go on for a long time, because people will see our messaging over the years in social media, and the positive effect that that has will resonate with them, I think.
73 million is huge. And it's really a signatures from Volt.
Yes.
Comparing to other parties.
Yeah, I think so, because you see that a lot of other parties invest in social media as well, but it's less effective. The effect it has is that a lot of parties invest in traditional media like TV and newspapers, and the people you reach with that is just a smaller audience. So I think Volt is very effective in the way it spends its money, targeting Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and there are a lot of people behind the scenes that work on this, and I think it's money well spent, to be honest.
It's very nice. And in terms of organization, because you also was in The Hague, right, in the office. So how do you organize so much team? Because how many people did you have in the campaign? Not only the volunteers, but really the people working in the region, etc. It's a lot. So how do you organize all of this? And how many people were you in total?
So from the party office, we work in the party office with roughly 8 to 10 people with the campaign. And then locally, we have about 24 campaign leads, and they're in charge of a province each, so 2 per province. And we give them a lot of freedom. So we say, this is what we want to achieve, and we match that with their goals. And then we say, you're creatively free to reach these goals that you want to. So we give them a certain budget, and then they fill in how they want to reach the people that they want to reach. They find their own target audience, they find their own places that they want to campaign. And I think that really works for us.
Okay, and now we are 5 minutes before the exit polls, right? So how do you feel about it?
Honestly, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't nervous. These are my first elections with Volt, and I think with the rise of the right in Holland, it's always scary, but we've been campaigning very hard and very positively. So I trust that we will have put a good message in Dutch people's hearts.
Okay, so it's your first campaign with Volt. So you joined the party. You work full time now for Volt Netherlands. So it's a lot of responsibility right away after joining the movement, right?
It's true, but I think that's what Volt is all about, right? We work with young people and we give them a responsibility and we say, okay, you want a different future? Work for it. You can change it if you want.
And what advice would you give to other chapters that want to grow like the Volt Netherlands?
I think big, because that's what Dutch people did, right? At first it was a really weird idea to have a political party focused just on Europe. in a country that doesn't necessarily care about Europe that much. And now what you see is that everyone knows about Volt. And just because you live in a country that might not care yet, they will care. Just if you put the right people in the right place and with the right message, I think it'll work.
And do you think the message that you've started to put through during this campaign can also reach the electorate for the European elections? What's your intake of what you've done now? How much of this will be super helpful for the European election, and how do you see this?
Well, I think we focus a lot on climate. That's one thing that we profile ourselves on in Holland a lot. We've done that for the general election, but we can do that for the European election too. I think this is something we'll see across European chapters of Volt, obviously, but this is something that resonates with our target audience as well. We have obviously a lot of young people voting for us, but what we see now is an uptake in older people voting for us as well, because they believe that we need a change for the future. And I think that's a part of our campaign that really works, and that's what we profile ourselves on.
Okay, and after tonight, you have a bit of rest before starting again for June?
Yeah, so maybe 9 hours of sleep, and then off to Paris, to the GA, to meet everyone and talk about what they want to see in the election.
Okay.
What?
What will happen in Paris? Can you tell us?
We're going to go to the GA. We're going to meet a lot of people. There are going to be a couple internal elections in Paris as well. And honestly, I think we're just going to have a very good time.
Indeed. So now it's 2 minutes. So we're going to see what happens. The exit polls, it's at 9 for sure.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, at 9 exactly, 9 sharp. We're going to see how a large percentage of the electorate has voted. And yeah, we'll see what they think.
Okay, and we hear the sounds behind us. So we're going to go to the main room and see what happens, okay? I cut the sound now.
This is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, go for it, Carl.
I was just saying, there's 1 minute left, and my heart is pounding. It's I'm so nervous. Man. Yeah, we worked.
Do you want us to call the firefighters?
I mean, you know, it's been such a hard campaign. We've been, you know, doing a lot, and now seeing this, you know, 1 minute.
Okay, so this is the big screen TV, and we're going to have the exit polls in 30 seconds.
This is very, very good. It's I feel like the jiggling of the handheld camera is just perfect for this type of atmosphere that we have right now.
I see people raising their hands. I don't know what that means.
2,
Oh God.
1.
2 seconds.
De exit poll is binnen, maar de PVV is de grootste partij. Volgens de exit poll. Jij hebt de cijfers.
Ja, maar hoe groot is de PVV dan? We gaan hem invullen en we beginnen met de VVD. Want zij waren de vorige Tweede Kamerverkiezingen ruim 2 jaar geleden.
So that's 2021.
Zetels toen, nu met een nieuwe lijsttrekker. VVD komt uit op
minus 11 seats for the VVD, from 34 to 23. Then it's D66 that was at 24 seats in 2021.
17 de vorige keer. Wat levert die samenwerking op?
No. So first GroenLinks and PvdA, they were at 17 and they go up of 9 seats to 26. So that's team amounts. So that's the PVV. PVV is up 18 seats, so they go from 17 to 35. This is huge. Oh, so that's the new party, NSC. So new party, they up 20 seats. NSC, 20 seats. I'm sorry that the camera is not better.
Is it only me, or
but if that's okay for you, we'll
Eurovision
continue to say out loud the figures that appear.
Wat is er op tafel de vorige keer vanwege die 24 zetels? Wat houdt ze
There's
over?
somewhat of a Eurovision
Oh,
vibe.
so D66 lose 14 seats. So they go down from 24 to 10 seats. CDA lose also 10 seats. CDA from 15 to 5.
9 zetels. Zij zitten in een iets dalende lijn. Is dat ook nu het geval?
Christian Democrat.
Ja,
SP, so the Socialist Party goes from 9 to 5. They lose 4 seats. So now everyone is yelling because Forum for Democracy, another far-right party, they lose 5 seats from 8 to 3.
Worden ze daarop afgestraft? Ja, zo nemen
Van de Dieren, so the animals, they go from 6 to 4, so they lose 2 seats, which is a bit surprising with the last polls. CU, so the Christian Union go from 5 to 3. Oh, Volt? Oh my God, Volt is at 2 seats at the moment. So they would lose 1 seat. Aye. Not a lot of reaction, but silence. Yeah, 21 lose 2 seats, so from 3 to 1. SGP keep 3 seats. Denk lose 1 seat from 3 to 2. 50 plus maintains at 1 seat. BBB, they are at 7 seats. So they grow up of 6 seats from 1 to 7, BBB, but 7 seats is not a lot compared to Senate elections. So we have all the results, and yeah, Volt is on the right, and they would be at 2 seats at the moment, which is not what we expected, of course. If you want to take over the mic, I will cut the mic now.
Yes, I think
What will change in the next hours? We have a bet. So this is the exit polls. Then we have a better result at 11:30, something like this. But it's not going to move a lot. Huh? Maybe we can come back to 3 seats, but there's slim chances to have more than that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. So, I mean, Sasha can't hear me now, but wow, Carl, what's the 2 seats? I mean, it's what do you think? Because D66 also went down.
Yes,
And
but they went down by a lot less than expected. They were expected to get 6 to 7 seats, and they got 10 seats, which I think for them they will be very happy with. I think the big shock is PVV. I mean, we thought it was going to be tight with PVV and GroenLinks. It was not tight at all. PVV, we thought they would get 29, maybe 30 seats. They got 35 seats. Yeah, it's and 2 seats for Volt. That's a tough pill to swallow. I'll be honest. Yeah, you know, we're hoping to grow, but
yeah, I mean, I mean, Ben was talking about how much it actually meant for the volunteers, the messaging that we were providing, and how much it actually meant for them to be on the street with a positive message and with and he also said we're in it for the long run. You know, changing politics is not something you do in 3 months.
Exactly.
And not in 3 years either. So I suppose not surprisingly, with this complete upset in the Dutch political landscape, there's been some reaction. But like, what are the roles now? Because who is the top 3 candidates on the Volt list? You've got Lawrence Dawson, who's a list leader, and he's also in Parliament now. And you have Marijke Kokkek.
Yes.
She's number 2.
Yes. So in essence, we will keep. We had to. We were elected with 3, but one member was kicked out, and we essentially had two parliamentarians, and now we'll have 2 parliamentarians, and I'm very much assume the same 2, Lawrence and Marijke. Yeah. Go on.
No, I was just gonna say, because even with just the 2 seats, and in the past couple of years, Volt has actually achieved quite a lot in Parliament. So there's been a lot of cross-party collaboration. There's been a lot of Volt imprint on the political results. One of the things that I think we remember mostly here in Denmark is the revolving door policy, where you actually have like a break, a pause between leaving politics and going into another profession that we might benefit from having a political career in the past. But what are some of the other things that Volt has been involved in the past couple of years in Parliament? Because obviously, while 2 seats isn't a lot, and let's hope for a miracle when we might get a third. Sasha mentioned that the next poll will be, or the final poll will be in 11:30, so in 2.5 hours from here. But what are some of the things that we've actually been able to achieve in the past just with those two seats?
Well, you know, in the Dutch parliament, it works very differently to other parliaments. So, you know, normally parliaments, you have certain, usually the ruling party, which proposes some amendments, or maybe some smaller parties. But really, in the Dutch parliament, each party can propose amendments and work together with other parties with amendments. So, of course, with two, MPs are always going to be limited in the proposals you can send. But you know, we had quite some big impact. You know, with different legislation on tax, on climate, for example, on planes. For example, increasing the tax on aviation and things like that. And of course, sometimes they don't get passed, but you can really start a discussion in Parliament, and you know, at least start a debate on it. And one of the things that we also drove home was student compensation for students. We in the past years we had what we call another unlucky generation who didn't have access to grants. They only had or only very few people had access to grants. And so one of the things that we really drove home was, you know, a better compensation for these students over the past 5 years who struggled with loss of loans and high and big debts. So, you know, even if sometimes we can't get legislation passed, we can really start discussions and work together with other big parties to get laws that we think are important to us.
And if I can just jump in there, because you also have a lot of locally elected people in the Netherlands. There's actually, I was going to say, I think it's 10 different municipalities in the Netherlands that have 2 or more Volt elected officials. And on local level, you can actually do a lot because there's such a short distance between the people, the problems, and the solutions that you can then push through the local council. But I was also thinking that with all the experience that the Dutch parliamentarians do have in the past couple of years, in the coming years, as Volt grows, we're going to have more Volt politicians in national parliaments, but also in regional parliaments and other parts of the democratic process. Do you see ways in which we might actually create some sort of I don't know, transition team, or making policy what you might say, shipping policies to different countries? Because when you say student debt, when you say student subsidies, I immediately react, because in Denmark we right now have a government that wants to cut subsidies to students, and one of our really big hallmarks, I think, is we can say, what have we learned from other countries, and how can we benefit from that knowledge? So even if let's just say that with 2 seats in Parliament, with a right a right wing turn, how can we actually be impactful in legislation? And I think one thing is definitely to make sure that we keep pushing for those European-wide solutions and keep saying, look, we can fix everything we want in the Netherlands. It just doesn't matter if your neighbor's house is on fire. Like, it's gonna catch on eventually. So I'm quite curious actually to see what we can make of this, because I'm just reading here a little message in our little internal chat that we've got here. So we're trying to get Lawrence, and he's just going to talk to some of the other candidates. But we'll try to get Lawrence to get a short statement from him during the evening. But Carl, your team in Eindhoven, wanna talk a little bit about the team there? Who have you got? Who have you got in the team, and what are you working on in Eindhoven?
Yeah, so we've got three excellent councillors in the municipal council, city council, Jaco, Inge, and Robin. And I think the nice thing to see at municipal elections is there's lots of collaboration across the spectrum. I mean, even some bills have got support from FVD. So even every party you can work with. I think that's a nice thing. Local parties are often a lot more pragmatic than sometimes their respective national chapter. And I think, for example, we've worked a lot of things on, improving citizen participation, improving, infrastructure. We've got lots of big projects, especially in Eindhoven, which is a really growing city in Europe because, ASML is based here. But one thing that because you raise a point of Denmark has certain ideas of how to do things, and in, for example, all different cities they know how to do different things. I think one thing that I really treasure at Volt is the sharing of best practices. It's something I think go often a lot of Volt. Each city has very smart ways of solving different problems, and I think that's something we really try to emphasize at Volt. Don't reinvent the wheel. We've had successes in other cities. Let's use those successes and implement them on a local level. A big example is social housing in Vienna, for example, or green canopies in Barcelona. And I think those experiences can really, if we bring those to Eindhoven, can really have a big impact because we're not looking for new solutions. We're not trying to come up with a new way of doing things because it already exists and it's proven to work. So why not use those? And that's something that our councillors are bringing to the table. More Europe, progressive ideas, and citizen participation because that's very important at local level.
I call it speed dialing for solutions.
Yeah, exactly.
You have Europe on the short keys. So from the ground, we're hearing there's going to be another exit poll at 9:30. So in just 15 minutes. And we're getting some polling now, and we're getting some comments now on YouTube. There are a couple of people saying, "Wow, PVV 35 seats, that's amazing," and we've got "Woo, Europe for Europeans." So the classic YouTube comments.
A diverse range of comments.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we see it as well in Denmark. These automatic responses. Whenever we say, "Hey, let's talk about a European collaboration," and we get these, "No, we need to leave the EU right now." We get these automatic replies. Have you, in the Netherlands, is there a turn away from the European Union, or how? Because I don't see Dexit happening at all. A Danish Brexit, I don't see that happening at all. I think everyone, even on the extreme right, has acknowledged that, yeah, no, we're never going to leave the European Union. But we still get these comments. But are there? I don't know what the Dutch Brexit.
Nexit.
The Nexit. Is there a Nexit element in Dutch politics?
Well, I think it's complicated. I mean, I think the southern. So, for example, Peter Omtzigt, who we thought would be the front runner, or maybe even BBB, we're more on the protectionist side of things. So, okay, we want to stay in the EU, but we don't like how things are going right now. We want to have, for example, opt-outs, which, for example, Denmark has. So, indeed, not ideal. But that's where more the conversation was going. PVV traditionally used to have an exit. If my memory serves me correctly, they kind of walked back on that, but still are more anti-European than BBB or Omtzigt. BBB, for reference, is a farmers' party that we saw rise last year. But so I definitely think this election has caused a much bigger turn, in European opinion. The previous government was fairly pro-EU, And I think now it'll definitely be a more anti-EU, at least feeling, even if PVV is not in government. They do have a big majority of seats, and that will for sure influence the way other parties are approaching this.
So you're also, I mean, you're in Eindhoven, but Carl, you were not born in Eindhoven. Where were you born?
I was born in Amsterdam, actually.
Okay, but you're French.
But I'm French because my parents are French.
Yeah, go. No, I was fishing for that. No, because I think, no, because basically one of the big concerns that we see in general is the right wing turn in France as well, with Marine Le Pen, and who famously also said, okay, no, we're not going to have a Frexit, we're not going to leave the European Union, so that's kind of off the table, which is fine. But we still have this nationalistic, as you say, protectionistic approach to policies by Marine Le Pen and her party. Do you, you can't talk about the future, but and this is just the first exit poll, and of course there's going to be discussions about government settlement and whatnot. But given what you know from campaigning on the streets in the Netherlands, given what you know about the French politics, what is your immediate impression? What do you think is gonna do? What do you think might spill over into French politics from the results here in the Netherlands?
Well, I think we've been increasingly seeing this discussion that that it's not that we want to leave the Europe, but we want a different Europe, at least from the far right. They want a Europe where nations have more say and it's more economic and less political. And I think the far right in France is really going to use this as a kind of as a tool, like they did for Italy. Look, the European people are changing their mind. It's not just France; it's also Italy. People are sick of the European Union. And I think that's really the thing that they're going to use from that. And but I think we see the same the discussion topics in France as we do in the Netherlands. Immigration is one of the top things. Obviously, it's different topics in France, but immigration is one of the top things, and I think they're really going to use that as well. And I think that's what are going to be the spillovers as well. Is really Europe. I think that the discussion they're going to try to go with is we've tried Europe, that doesn't work. We need to go somewhere else. And I think that's obviously we're going to try and counter that, saying we tried Europe, but we didn't really try. We need to do it better. We need to do it correctly, because it's right now it's not working indeed. But the answer is not less cooperation, but more cooperation.
Yeah, I think some of when we talked about migration before, and now we're talking about labor market as well. I think that's on everybody's lips, that we have a demographic challenge. We have more old people compared to the younger generation. The demographic development doesn't look so good. But there was an article in the news yesterday in Denmark about basically saying there's been an increase in employed non-Danish people in Denmark in the last 20 years. We've just seen a steady increase in people from outside of Denmark coming to Denmark to work. And everyone's like, yeah, that's pretty good, because if they weren't here, all these businesses and all these industries would just go down the drain, because there aren't the people that they would need to work. And our own MEP in the European Parliament, Damien, he's also been successfully propping up this new EU visa called the Blue Card, and I'm very happy about this Blue Card. It's a talent visa for third country nationals to apply for a talent visa to be able to work across Europe, but not in Denmark, because Denmark has an opt-out. So you mentioned an opt-out earlier tonight, and saying, oh, maybe some of the Dutch parties want to suggest an opt-out. And I think what the lessons learned from Brexit is that we are not going to, as a European community, we're not going to go down the path of let's make exemptions, let's make special rules for you. What we are going to see, I think, also what we saw today, when the European Parliament voted overwhelmingly in support of treaty changes. We saw that today. I don't know if you saw Damien's amazing tweet there. But the idea that we're moving as a European community in the direction of more unity and more collaboration might also be the push-pull factor of seeing a protectionistic, hey, things are going too fast. Let's slow down a bit. Let's protect ourselves a little bit. But do you feel that there is a well, I've been talking a lot, but do you feel that I'm right in my analysis?
Yeah, no, sorry, I was a bit distracted because I was looking at a poll which confirmed what I was saying, which immigration was a really big issue. But no, coming back to what you're saying, no, I fully agree. Yeah, no, I think indeed it's spot on. Yeah.
You didn't hear half what I was saying because you're looking at the screen.
Yeah, no, because I mean, it was a poll. Basically, it says 80% of PVV voters were voted because of immigration and those issues. And if I just go back, because I think this is an important, really important point. Let me just. A lot of people also were worried about health, and cost of living was also a really big issue for voters. In fact.
So it's inflation and lack of housing, huh?
Yeah, inflation and lack of housing. So yeah, no.
It's really interesting that at the end of the day, we talk about technology, we talk about digitalization, we talk about making life easier for everybody. At the end of the day, when the fundamental things are at risk, like do I have a roof over my head?
Yeah.
Am I able to afford the phone bill? Am I able to afford the food bill?
Yeah.
Once, then you turn to the people who say, yes, I will make sure you have a roof over your head. Yes, I'll make sure that you can pay the food bill. I will protect you. And I think there's just something to be said for that we're in such, the conversation on crisis, the terminology around crisis has been so predominant for such a long time. We've had a financial crisis, a health crisis. We're having wars everywhere. We've had a migration crisis, and in Denmark, the politicians have almost they've used up the word crisis. The Danes are like, yeah, no, there's not that much crisis actually. We're done with the whole crisis thing. Climate crisis, yes, we acknowledge that for sure. Oceanic crisis, as in our waterways are dying and our oceans are dying. You can't pull up a cod from the Baltic Sea anymore. So there's definitely environmental crisis. But when it comes to keep making the crisis the whole vote for us, we will protect you. We'll put a roof over your head because there's a crisis. In Denmark, we're kind of a little bit, we see through it. And we're done with it because it's not a very progressive or forward-thinking mentality to keep thinking, oh, we're in a constant state of crisis, we're in a constant state of stress. But in the Netherlands, is the crisis narrative still prevailing?
I think so. When you mentioned this, it really made me think of one moment in the debate that really went viral in the Netherlands. There was a clip, and it was during a debate for the leaders. The biggest 6 parties were there. Indeed, this was kind of the rise of the PVV when they started coming up in polls. And one of the questions one of the ladies was asking for, is like, it was related to the cost of living crisis. So, I can't afford food. I'm struggling to pay bills. What do I do? And Frans Timmermans was giving a detailed explanation of what we're going to do. Increase subsidies. It was listing a few of their policies, and it will take time, but we're going to solve it. And then Wilders responded by saying, "Well, no, but she needs a problem now." And then he turned to her and said, "Well, I'm going to solve your problem now." And then everybody clapped and everybody was really happy. But it really comes back to kind of this point we were mentioning before. We're not a one-liner party. And I don't think it's possible to be, because policies are nuanced. Things take time to change. You can't just come in power and flap. Cost of living crisis is gone. But that's also the issues to deal with. You've got a crisis in the Netherlands that's I think more prevalent. definitely. Housing crisis, cost of living crisis. We're still talking a lot about those, and I think people want reassurance that things are going to be solved soon. Because like you said, it's been going on for a long time. 3 years of crises. We don't want crises anymore. We want solutions, and yeah,
the Netherlands just never struck me as a crisis-prone country, or like the mentality of the Dutch just never struck me as, um, um, yeah, maybe it's the lowlands, the idea of no, we've always got our head above water or something, like we'll always manage. So it does. I mean, I'm an historian of background and studied nationalism at university, and the whole like the national narrative of Denmark, like I know it by heart, and I know that. But what is the national narrative of the Netherlands actually? I don't know. I'm asking.
Well, I think this election will flip things completely. Before the narrative of Netherlands for the past 10 years, 15 years under Mark Rutte was, pragmatism. We have to be pragmatic with money, and we were part of the Frugal Four, we have to be, balanced budget. We have to be, deal with issues, but in a pragmatic way, in a slow way. Um, Netherlands did have climate change. It was way too slow, but we did have one. And you saw Rutte was willing to work with anyone to make a government form. And I think that's also been a pillar of Dutch discussion, was pragmatism, collaboration, cooperation. And I think really this election has flipped things on its head. We've really gone to, if these polls are true, we've really gone to a party that's a lot less pragmatic and a lot more about one-liners, messaging of hate and fear. And so I think really all Netherlanders who weren't of left or center are going to be shocked by these results. I think it's really the upset of this result cannot be underestimated. I don't think there's ever been a poll that, or in recent history, that's put this party as so high as 35 seats. So to see this, I think it's completely going to change the narrative of Dutch politics.
I'm gonna just share. I got a comment from on our YouTube channel. I'm just gonna share my screen a little bit and try to see if I can't find an image from the.
Well, maybe if it can wait after the next exit polls because it will be in a minute.
It's coming in a minute.
Yeah,
yeah, it's 9:29.
Let's see if Sasha's is on board. With,
Otherwise, I could try and give us an update. I'm looking at the live stream. They don't seem to be going towards the poll, but they have 1 minute. I guess we'll wait.
Let's find out. Let's find out what's happening.
You can continue talking. I'll cut you off once the live stream goes to.
That sounds fine. Yeah, no, because I think there is a definite difference between the narrative of politicians and the narrative of the people. Because the political narrative may very well be we're in a crisis, but that's when the people go, yeah, but we voted for you to fix the crisis, and you're taking a lot of money for it, and it's your full-time job. So stop telling us that we need to pay more money for our food, because, and this is a situation in Denmark where you've got political parties in Denmark saying to fix the climate, we need to put CO2 taxes on people's food, like the consumer has to. And I think we're way past that. And we should be way past that to say that it's up to the consumer to change everything. Oh, the consumer has the power. No, the consumer only has the power that's given to them by the producer and by the system. So the idea that we don't, we need structural change. The structural change is needs to be provided by the political forces who can structure society in a new way, who can make deals and change these things. And I think this is another thing that I hope that the people who are online, following us online, can also kind of nod their heads to, is that when we get told, oh, just purchase different things, make different life choices, do things differently, then things will change. We're like, well,
Yeah.
we can't, you know, we try to run for office and we're being told, no, you're not professional enough. You can't just, you can't just go in there and run for office. And like, but that's how we need to change things, is to run for office and actually stand up for what we want, what we believe in. But you can't do that, and you're not old enough, or you're not mature enough, or you're not experienced enough, and things like that. And it keeps, what I keep hearing is, yeah, we're not going to change. Like, that's what I keep hearing. It's not because we're doing everything wrong. It's because the system is just, yeah, we're not gonna. It's too complicated to change. And I think I really hope that everyone watching tonight really reflects on that, because that's what Vault is about. Vault is
Yeah.
literally about saying the status quo does not work for us. The way that politicians have been running things in the past, with a them us narrative, with a divide and conquer a mentality, and with keep saying, no, that's too difficult, no, that takes too long, or that goes too quickly, people can't understand. The idea of political leadership, societal leadership, is about communicating why we're doing this, what does it mean for you, and what do we need you to do, so that we can achieve this overarching goal. Like in Denmark, they say a social contract, right? We've used that term quite a lot now, but I think it's okay to start to say it's not a social contract, it's it's a community idea, that we literally have. We can't have politicians that just do their own thing without listening to the people. But we can't also have people like, you mentioned this Geert Wilders situation, where he just basically said, "I'll fix your problem right now." Like, no, you're not. You're not going to build her a house, or pick the pocket. Pick your own pocket and go, I'll pay for that, because you can't do that for every single person. And I think it's simply so uh, uh, like, we as voters also need to be more critical, and we are critical of our politicians, but we need to
So,
continue.
Hi, can you hear us?
I want to stop you
Yes.
because
Yeah, very good. Okay, great. So here we're back here. 1 second. Okay, so I'm with Iman. Iman was is 4 on the list of Volt Netherlands.
Hello.
Thank you very much. So the first exit polls at 9 give 2 seats for the moment to Volt Netherlands. There will be other exit polls. What's your reaction and what's your expectation for the rest of the evening?
Yes, thank you. Well, I think my first reaction is a bit of a shock reaction, and that has nothing to do with Volt, but it's related to the biggest party at the moment from the first exit polls. It's quite a right-wing party, so I'm quite shocked about that. And worried, I must say. And then when it comes to Volt, the 2 seats, it's of course not the result that we wanted, because we wanted to grow. I think at the moment we have to wait and see what is in the next exit polls. But I think it just shows, in combination with the results of the biggest party, that our voice is very important. And it actually, in a way, it motivates me even more to continue our work and to continue to tell our story, because it's much needed. I would say, if I see the results at the moment, it's the first result, so we have to wait. It can differ a little bit, maybe not so much, but we have to see.
So what you're mentioning is the PVV, right? That arrived in first.
Yeah.
Do you think what kind of coalition they can make with the result that we've seen at 9?
Well, that's an interesting question, because if you see who's next, then you see the VVD and NSA. That's the 2 others with the most votes, and both they said that they don't want to form a cabinet with the PVV. So it's going to be very interesting. Maybe we're going to have elections again soon. I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. We have a question in the chat, which is about what was your most memorable debate during the campaign as four of the list.
That's a good question. I think it was a debate 1 week ago. It was about migration, and I had a one-on-one debate with a party, also quite right-wing party. Of course, migration is a very difficult topic at the moment, with a lot of populistic voices. For me, it was memorable because in that debate, it really showed that from Volt we take migration seriously, but we also want to be we see migration as something that is positive, and on the one hand we want to be a safe haven for people, for refugees who are like fleeing for war, for example. But we also need migration, and during that debate it shows that our ideas from Volt, they are realistic and they provide real solutions, and like the solutions from this other party are not realistic, they're not possible. So that, for me, that was a very memorable moment. Yeah.
Okay. What were some of the solutions?
Some of our solutions, or our solutions are, well, first of all, we say that we want to have legal migration routes outside of Europe, so people won't have to risk their lives if they want to flee their country. And one of the other solutions is also that we want to have a law in Europe where we can discuss among member states who is going to host refugees, for example. So you can do this in solidarity with each other. So the burden is going to be on all equally and not on one country. So those are like a few solutions that we suggest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. It's a bit hard. A lot of people we can see is a bit silent or expecting more in the next hours.
Yeah.
So thank you for taking the time, and see you around.
Yeah, thank you very much for the opportunity, and a big hello from Utrecht here. Bye-bye.
See you later.
So that's also a big thing, isn't it? That we've got all these volunteers and we've got all these big discussions, but that we've got that it's only when you get up close and personal in a debate that you really realize, when you test the policies against your fellow politicians, when you go, well, this is our vision, this is our mentality behind these ideas, and you then come up across someone that has some completely opposite ideas. I think that is perhaps something that is necessary to have more of outside of the campaign trail, because we certainly see it here in Denmark, because Volt is it's a very small party. We have a very big barrier for getting on the ballot. And for those of you watching, please go and give us an endorsement if you haven't done so already in Denmark. Please get your friends to endorse us as well. It's a great link. It's volt.link/stemvolt, just like in Dutch, STEM Volt, StemVolt. And basically what we experience is that outside of the election cycle, the debates happen only, of course, with elected officials and whatnot, but they're quite brief. They tend to be quite one line discussions. We don't really have long ones, and it struck me it struck me today that doesn't sharpen the community's ability to have long and complicated discussions. So today, I don't know if you know this, but in Denmark they proposed this Quran burning law, which is basically a couple of years ago we had these Muhammad cartoons in Denmark, where a cartoonist from Denmark drew a picture, and it got published in a newspaper as a picture depicting the Prophet Muhammad, and that's not allowed. So lots of repercussions came there, and this cartoonist, again a cartoonist, so just a guy with a pen, had to be under constant protection because people wanted to kill him. and there were people traveling from Denmark down to the Middle East promoting how bad Denmark were and our exports suffered and whatnot. So we've had some experience with the repercussions of angering extremely religious fanatics. And what happened, of course, what happened in Bataclan, what happened with Charlie Hebdo, and also what happened in the Netherlands with the killing of the film director who made a movie about Islam. Like, but what has happened now in Denmark is we also have this right-wing extremist Danish person who burns Korans and go into areas where predominantly Middle Eastern people live and start talking abuse about the Quran and everything. It's quite bad. But freedom of speech prevails, so police protect him and whatnot. It's a whole other story. But that has resulted in the OIC basically saying, "Hey Denmark, can you please stop? Can you please make it illegal to burn the Quran?" And our foreign minister, who has no backbone whatsoever, he was like, "Yep, sure. What's the big deal? Let's just ban that." And today in Parliament, there was a 4-hour discussion with experts, with legal experts, with artists, because the way that the legislation has been framed is very bad. It's like 5 lines. It leaves everything open to interpretation, and it leaves it up, the responsibilities up to the courts to interpret these 5 lines. Like, it's absolutely awful. Just give me one. Oh, maybe we have something here, Sasha. Maybe we have something here.
There's new exit polls, so let's see. It's going very fast, huh? But it's still the same at the moment. PVDD are 3 seats now. They're losing 1 seat more, the animals, which can be good for us. Christian Uni, 3 seats. So there is no, Volt is still at 2 seats at the moment. Still, Volt is still at 2 seats at 943. D66 is still at 10 seats. VVD is still at 24. PVV is still at 35. And NS is still at 20. So not much movement at that point. Just the animal lose 1 more seat. And I think GroenLinks is now at 25. I don't remember if it was the case already. So now she's explaining what can be a potential coalition with Christian Uni, VVD, CDA, D66, but they would all need NSC because NSC is 20 seats, so it's really the black sheep of this election. Okay, over to you.
Yeah, it's always interesting to be in those rooms at these points. But just to finish very quickly,
Yeah, go on.
the point was that today for 4 hours in Parliament we had artists, writers, politicians, legal minds coming together to discuss this law in a calm, collected, in a structured manner. And it was live streamed, and I try to watch it while I work, and you can't really concentrate like that. But the point was, why don't we have these discussions before we make that legislation? I think the crisis discussion that we had before about how politicians want to promote some sort of crisis mentality is also because then they don't have to engage in so much conversation with the electorate. Because if you can just say, "Oh, look, I'm sorry we didn't have time to discuss this broadly or to include you so much in the process, but things have to go quickly because we're in a crisis." And I think what we can do in Volt is take that crisis mentality, flip it around, and say, and I used to work in crisis management for 12 years, so I know a little bit about this, is that in a crisis, communication is key. And so the idea that you use the crisis narrative as a reason to not communicate, or to communicate in a very one-way form, and saying, this is how it is, I don't take any questions because I'm very busy and this is a crisis. It is absolutely the wrong way of communicating. And everybody working in crisis management knows this. You have to make sure that people understand what's happening, and you have to include people in the solution. I'm hoping that maybe what we're going to see in the next 7 months to the next election in the European Parliament is that we in Valg can take the crisis out of the narrative and put in our solutions, our political ideas, and make sure that they actually reverberate in people, and that they encourage people to think differently, that when we work together, migration isn't a dramatic issue that might flip over a country. Not when we work together. In fact, that's how we make sure that refugees, asylum seekers get access to the benefits of human rights developed after the Second World War. Like, it's basically our own a legacy that we're now saying, human rights. So, but I've been talking a lot, Carl. What's on your mind and your end? Because you've been following the polls quite intensely on the.
Yeah, I have, and I think, I mean, obviously, my first response to that is, I think, completely correct. We left the Second World War, and we said, this division is enough. We need to unite and work together to solutions. And I really hope we can start a new chapter in that and say, look, we did that, and now we need to move on and continue working together. And I think despite these results, I think with these results in mind, we know we are doing the correct thing, and we need to really talk to people, involve people in the process, and really explain to people what we're doing, and exactly break down the crises and offer solutions. But indeed, I think it's nice maybe to switch the subject a bit and talk about the results, a bit more clearly, and maybe a bit about the coalitions, because I think now that the results are fairly, well, they can change, but maybe plus or minus 1 to 2 seats. It's going to be a very difficult process, I think. I think someone mentioned, but PVV, they won't. They are very isolated. They don't have a lot of parties, at least during the election campaign, who said they would work with them. So getting to those famous 76 seats is going to be very difficult. And maybe I can share my screen, and kind of there is a tool to kind of work with parties. And I just heard that we will get Lawrence in 5 minutes, so I'll just eat up some time while we get to there.
Just biding our time until Lawrence gets here.
Because obviously that's something that everyone's, I'm sure, looking forward to. We should see my screen.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
So you see, here is this coalition builder. So the current government is the VVD, the biggest party in the past 12 years, together with the D66, who were the second biggest party in the polls last year, and dramatically dropped down. CU and CDA. And you can see that's a far cry from 76 seats. It's not even close to that. Okay, so one possible coalition, for example, that was mentioned before, which is the right-wing coalition. So with PVV, other right wing is FVD, BBB.
They're all called the same. It's very difficult when you're not in the.
Yeah, so you're right. The PVV is the one who just won, so the far right. BBB is the farmers' party, and FVD is anti-democracy, Forum from Democracy. And you see, even there, they difficult path to government, and at least during the campaign trail, the VVD, so Mark Rutte's party, said that they won't work with PVV, so the Wilders party, and Omtzig's party, NSC, also said this. So if they decide to work with them, you have a path towards coalition, because you see, we don't even need, with the Wilders party and the two other right parties, that can be government. But
what is the risk of a minority government?
in Netherlands, we don't really do minority governments generally.
Okay.
It's not really done a lot, or hasn't been ever been done. Um, and I think that's also, yeah, I think, new elections are not off the table, and something to also take into account is we also have a Senate, and the picture in the Senate is very complicated as well, because this coalition, you see, even if they decide to make a coalition, they only have, if I'm not mistaken, 14 seats in the Senate out of the 35 they need, or 37 they need to have a majority. So it's not even close. So I think, wherever we go, there's going to be some tough negotiations, and possible maybe re-election, another election, I think.
So I asked about the minority government because what we've had in the past in Denmark is actually the traditionally in Denmark we've only had minority governments, and we don't have as many parties in Denmark as there is in the Netherlands. But right now we have, I believe, 11 different parties are in parliament, and we have 3 parties that are in government, and those 3 parties form a majority, a thin majority, but a majority nonetheless. And what has happened in the past is that the minority government has always been, they've needed to be able to, create consensus with some other supporting parties and say, okay, maybe we can't have it completely our way. So we're gonna compromise on a few things, but that the kind of the legislative agenda was still driven by the government in some sorts, but it wasn't completely controlled by the government because they needed the help of the supporting parties. But so if PVV is, and that's Wilders' party, if they're
Yeah.
out, because nobody wants to work with them, what then? Who would be? Which remind me again? Which is the new the social contract thing?
It's
Which
this
one?
NSC. It's the yellow one you see here.
Okay.
They got 20 seats. So I
Mm.
mean, you can start putting names together. Like, for example, we say, France Timmermans is very cooperative and works with the 2 other right parties, and maybe you add in the 66. Maybe that works. But these are very ideologically opposed parties. And I saw an interesting poll the other day. Only 7% of VVD voters want their party to work with GroenLinks PvdA, because GroenLinks PvdA is left. GroenLinks was quite left, and PvdA maybe a bit more center, and they've met kind of in the middle. But the result is that for a lot of VVD voters, that's too far. So, for example, this there's a lot of incompatibility within the parties, and
well, that's definitely something that we want to talk to Lawrence about when he comes on. Is saying what's next, like what is actually
exactly.
in this presentation is really, really powerful. Maybe I want to write. What is the name of the website there? It's app something, right?
I can send in the link in the chat.
Perfect, because then we can share it online then. So let's see. There's a question online as well. Do you think it is possible to have a Swedish/Finnish model where the far right does not get prime minister, and VVD will have first female prime minister?
That's possible, but at least if the VVD holds at all to their word, is that they will not work with the PVV. So this is conversation that's often brought up in the campaign is, will you work with the PVV, so Wilders' party, and both the Omzicht party, so the new party, and VVD, the Mark Rutte's party, have both said no, we will not work with them. So using that, I doubt it, but never say never. At the end of the day, they won't become prime minister, so maybe they reach a compromise. And if they do, I think I think that might be the compromise. I don't think the VVD will ever want to support a government or the PVV as a prime minister. But I really have a hard time seeing that coalition happen, to be honest. Just because, yeah, unless they really just backtrack completely on themselves, they were quite.
Oh look, it looks like Sasha's there now.
Hi, can you hear me?
I will stop sharing.
So we are with Laurence, your head of the list.
Hi everyone.
Volt is now at 2 in the exit poll so far. Yeah. What's your reaction and what's the next steps?
Well, I have to be honest, my mood is a bit low at the moment. That is mainly because of the biggest party at the moment is the PVV, which is an extreme right party that has become the biggest. They are anti-rule of law. They are pro-Nexit. They don't want to address climate change. So that is very disappointing, of course. And also for us, I think we did an amazing campaign over the last few months. We had a really good election program with some very good choices that we made. We had a very, how do you say it, content-wise campaign. With a lot of positive feedback, but in the last week there was a lot of strategical voting, and therefore we went from 5 in the polls to now 2 in the election results, which is of course disappointing. But nevertheless, this whole election, Europe was not one of the topics that was being discussed, except for Volt. We addressed it in every interview, in every possibility that we had. And you see how important it is, because we cannot address the problems that we face in the world right now by ourselves. So there's so much what we need to do. And also with 2 seats, we have now 2 seats in Parliament. We will remain with 2 seats. We will continue to spread that message.
Yeah, exactly. And on this topic, with the new government that can be formed, how Volt can still have an impact?
I mean, if you're in opposition or coalition, we have to fight for our ideals and for the election program that we have, and we will do that either way. So also with 2 seats, you can make a lot of noise. You can ensure that you address a lot of issues that arise, and make sure that you are there and that you keep parties. How do you say it in English? Keep parties in the right direction. And so that's what we will continue to do. And of course, in 6 months, 7 months, there will be a very big election for Volt, European elections. And I think that is something that we really need to work towards, because if we're going to do well in the elections, that will give a boost in the Netherlands, but everywhere in Europe. And I think it's more important than ever. But we really need to make sure that we're going to mobilize everyone in Europe to stand up against populism, to stand up against the far right, to ensure that we really have progressive politics, and that it's going to be European politics. So, I mean, it's also a call to action to all of us. I mean, what is happening now in the Netherlands, in Slovakia, we really need to stand up and mobilize everyone to ensure that we grow bigger.
Thank you very much for Volt Europa. We will see you in Paris?
Hopefully, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so thank you. Over to you.
Oh, that's amazing. I think it was really good and very good, honest reflection by Laurens there. I've known Laurens since I think 4 or 5 years or something, and has always struck me as this level-headed a guy that just kind of rolls with it, and but also very passionate, as you could see here. Very clear about what the challenges are, what the risks are if we don't fight them. And I think he's very right in saying that this is a call to action. Like, whatever happened in the Dutch elections, now we still have 2 seats. We had 2 seats before the election. We still have 2 seats in Parliament. And you can make a lot of noise with 2 seats, as he was saying. And I think that's very true, because obviously the noise is being made by Laurens and Marijke in the Tweede Kamer is obviously being echoed throughout Europe by all the other Volt chapters. But when you see a speech like this, Carl, and you've been on the ground, you've been working, you've been handing out flyers. So as Laurens, I know for sure. But what does it mean for you as a volunteer to kind of see him like this, honestly, sad, but also willing to fight for the next one?
I think obviously we're all disappointed, and we share his sadness and his disappointment really deep in our heart, because we for us, this is a lot more than just 2 seats or 3 seats. It's a livelihood of people. It's a future, of our kids, of our grandchildren, and a lot of things we put so much energy and time into. But I think indeed his call of action is completely correct. Especially for me, for my generation, we've lived with the European Union. It's something that we've always had, and we've had the fruits of the European Union are really given to us, and we don't know life without it. And I think the call to action is so correct. You know we have to fight for a better European Union, but we also have to fight for the European Union we already have. And we're seeing this rise of populism, but and a lot of our my generation maybe feels disillusioned with it, or maybe doesn't want to get involved in politics. But this is a call to action. We can't let this slip. We can't. This is a turning point in our generation. We have to grab it. We have to become active, make our voice heard, and say something about it, because these politicians, who throw out hate, who want to bring us back, who want to, fracture the European Union. It's against a lot of our generation's interests. So I speak all for my generation, because a lot of us are feeling left behind or neglected, and I think this is you can have a voice, and you need to have a voice, because we don't have any other choice. So yeah.
I think a lot of let's see, what have we got? We've got some comments here as well. Okay, there was a Harry Potter comment there. But I think when you also say your generation, there's obviously a generational discord as well. But I forget, I think well, I don't actually remember. I think it was Ben, our campaign lead there, who was saying that actually a lot of grandparents were turning to Volt and were voting for us there. And I remember of all people, Franz Timmermans saying, "I'm a grandfather. I'm going to vote for the future." But I mean, on top of my mind, I would think that the first call would be to Franz Timmermans and say, "Okay, you did the national thing now, but you're a European at heart. Like, let's push Europe. Let's work together. Let's build some sort of coalition of understanding or something to actually combat these nationalistic, protectionistic ideas that don't actually solve anything, even though they sound nice." Even though they may feel nice to say in the moment, or it feels safe to hear it in that split second, but you actually, once you realize that it's not going to change, because it's a structural question. That's something that I'm hoping to see, some sort of cross sectional collaboration.
Yeah. No. Exactly.
Very
No.
nice. But we're getting a question also from Antoine, who has been now before you all. Antoine has been sitting in the back, making sure that the sound works and that this live stream is actually working, and managing everything. Antoine, do you want to jump in and just introduce yourself to those of us who are online, and say, where are you based at the moment?
Well, I'm 23 years old. I'm living in next to Versailles, next to Paris. So I'm 40 minutes away from the next GA, which is great. And basically, I'm a space engineer, and I'm also at the French National Board, and working also at the local level, organizing the last French National Assembly, and trying to make Volt grow in Normandy, where I was born and raised.
Nice, thank you. So I was just muted for a second there, but thank you, Antoine. I think not a lot of people know how much it actually takes to to make these live streams so easy as they are tonight, and we're streaming across 2 different platforms. So well done, Antoine, for doing this.
Thank you very much, but you are animating so well. I just have to let you go and just go by the vibe, so that's okay from me.
Oh, but that's good. That's really, really good. We're just messaging Sasha, our man on the ground, to see if he can't get one more interview, and then we're gonna try to see if we can wrap it up here by 10:30. I think we're gonna stop tonight. I think a lot of us, we have a lot of things to think about as well. So those of you online, if you have any questions and you want to get them out there, don't hesitate to ask questions. I'm monitoring the YouTube channel. And if there are any questions also on Twitch, please let us know. We're here to answer them. But Carl, I really want to talk about what you were saying before about your generation, because what I'm seeing in Denmark, and also what we were seeing in 2017 when we founded Vault, was there are so many pro-European like organizations out there, and they're apolitical or they're cross-political, but they don't want to commit to one political party, or they don't want to, oh, we'll support everybody and nobody at the same time. And we also see this now with green movements, particularly young movements. Like, they just want to be heard, and they don't want to commit to a political agenda. They're like, no, we're apolitical, we're cross-political. And it works both ways, I think, because if if we don't demand something from our politicians, then why would they care? On the other hand, uh, if if the if we don't vote as a bloc, then what is the point of having, if that group of people are actually splitting their votes on 20 different parties, then it's just a group of people that vote differently. And I think we've been talking about strategic voting, but is it time for the next generation to get political in the way that we saw in, like, I'm going to say early 20th century, where you had, with the rising of the uh, uh, um, unions, for example, or in the 70s, where we had these huge sit-ins and just strikes, and demanding to be heard, demanding change. um, because the sit-ins that we see today, they just get pulled away by the police. Extinction Rebellion is an example, famously anti-political, and famously being dragged away by authorities. And so, what should the next generation do? Except, of course,
Yeah.
vote for vote. Of course, that's what we want.
Yeah,
But
obviously, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, the obvious answer is vote for Volt, but no, I think beyond that, indeed, is we need to get political. I mean, I think there's a big frustration, which I understand, which is the feeling that politics does not work anymore. And I think the automatic reaction that people often have when they think about this is, okay, I just won't get political. If politics doesn't work, I'm just not going to get involved in politics. And I think that's an understandable reaction. You're so consumed with the everyday life, paying the bills, making sure you have a roof over your head, that politics is just a backwards thought. And I think it's important to remind people, we've come here, we've come to this point because of the work and the immense sit-ins and protests that people have done in our previous generations, and we need to go further. We need to continue that. We need to fix the system, because the fixed system is broken, but we fix that by getting involved in the system. And I think this is something that we really need to get across, that you have a voice, and the people have a voice, and we need to use that. And I mean, Fridays for the Future, I think, was already something that did have an impact. Greta Thunberg and lots of other students got involved. But yeah, I think we need to show people that they can have a voice.
So how, and that leads me to my next question. How easy is it to be involved with Volt, for example? Like, you have Antoine starting a new a team up in Normandy. How easy is it to get involved in politics with Volt? It's a leading question.
Yeah, a surprise answer for me. It's very easy. I think there's so many different ways you can get active in Volt. You can be super active. For example, I work in 2 different chapters, Volt France and Volt Netherlands. So I'm doing a lot of stuff for Volt, but you can also just be there to support, either by just donating a bit of money, or even, to be honest, by showing up to meetups, giving your ideas, giving what you think needs to be heard, because we're a grassroots movement, which means every voice is heard and every voice is important. Whether climate change is your biggest issue, whether it's immigration, whether it's digital infrastructure, your voice is needed. And so I think whether it's saying your opinion in meetups and debates, whether it's donating money, whether it's maybe organizing events, or doing letterbox flyer or street to street action, anything is welcome. So you can either be very little active or be super active and have your voice heard. So there's so much range to be room for involvement.
I think one of the things that I really enjoy doing as a local activist is organizing debates. I find them really fun, and it's in a way it's quite easy, because if you start by asking people who have something to say, and that's a citizen, it could be a local activist, and you say, okay, what I can do is I can provide a forum for you. We can provide like an online setting like this. We can live stream to a couple of places, and we can share it with basically all of Europe. What do you think? And I've always had people saying, oh, I'm a little, I don't know, is my English good enough, or something like that. But at the end of the day, the idea of being able to share your thoughts on a problem, not just with you and the usual suspects in your group of friends or network, has a really profound effect on people. I think that's something that we really need to remind ourselves of, is this ability to engage with everybody around Europe who already have a political agenda. So we're not starting from zero here. We are starting quite high up with an attentive audience who want to make things different. Is a huge a bonus for us, and I'm hoping everyone should do a crash course in how to manage these online calls, and being able to live stream, because it is an incredible way of making that European discussion so much easier. I mean, you're in Eindhoven, Carl. Antoine is right side of Versailles. I'm here in Copenhagen, and we're talking like we're sitting across from each other in a room having a coffee. And it has been very nice. And I am trying to check out if there are any questions here, and I did get one. Let's see, from Aquavis. Why do you think the PVV has won so overwhelmingly? So I
Yeah.
guess that's a question for you, Carl.
Yeah, I mean, I think we started off this live stream. We talked a lot about immigration, but also related to that is safety, and those were I was looking at the polls before. Those were some of the big issues that voters felt during this campaign, and that was one of the main conversations of the campaign. And PVV has always been talking about immigration as one of their main topics, and something that voters have felt were very strong on. So I think that's really something they did well on. Voters also felt, I think, that Geert Wilders had a very captivating debate performance. I talked about before the example with Frans Timmermans and Geert Wilders. He had a lot of quite impactful one-liners that really circulated media a lot. And I think also just dissatisfaction with the VVD. They've moved to the right and pushed kind of the conversation further to the right. We highlighted, I mean, Kathrine did a beautiful example of Denmark, where the parties tackle a subject and try to solve a solution, and that moves things further to the right. I think what we saw in the Netherlands is they put immigration on a bigger spotlight, so moving it to the right, but without really tackling it in a way that people were happy with. And so we moved to the right, but people were still unhappy, and so they looked further to the right for a solution. And I think why the PVV did so well. I mean, we expected them to do well. We expected them to get 28, maybe 30 seats. But I think there's still questions as to how they got to 35 seats. You know, I mentioned this before. I don't think they've ever polled that high, or maybe they did, but once or twice. So there are many questions surrounding how did they get there, and I think that's something that will be looked at by a lot of Dutch pollsters and election analysts in the coming days and weeks.
There was a poll about airline passengers and basically how in a poll passengers would say, oh yeah, I want to buy CO2 emission things, I want to these CO2 saving elements. I'll pay 2% of my flight ticket. I like that. But then they look at the poll, the voluntary survey, and they look at the amount of passengers who actually did buy those CO2 things. And of course, the numbers were vastly different. As in, I would like to do it, but I'm not actually going to. And I'm not sure that we're seeing the same in polling, because of course polling is an art form. It's also traditionally riddled with concerns about how accurate they are, and there are different ways of going about it. But it could be perhaps a way of saying that even in a polling situation where you could ask a lot of questions, people may not want to say that, yeah, I'm going to vote, here PVV, or when the polling is done, it's not a choice they make. But what do you think? What do you think that means for the European elections in 6 months from now? Because my my fear might have been that if or my conclusion, and that may very well be wrong, might say, but now there are so many of these right-wing people in Dutch politics, national Dutch politics, they're not going to also run for the European Parliament, so we're going to have less. I don't know. I don't know if that's a right analysis, or whether it's just hopeful thinking. I don't think that we need a more right-wing leaning parliament.
Yeah, no, I think it's very difficult to see what's going to happen for the European elections, and I think what's going to be interesting is seeing, okay, what's the aftershock of this. I think the shock of this election is immense. Even the PVV were surprised by this result. And I have no idea how it's going to impact the European elections. It's very difficult to say. I think the coming weeks and days we'll see that. And I just wanted to comment on, because I see one comment on the YouTube comments was said that didn't mention economy, and I do think they have a point. Is that indeed also the cost of living crisis has played also a role. The prices have increased, especially inflation hit Netherlands very hard. And for a lot of people, things have become not very affordable. Costs have gone up. Income, wage income has stagnated, and it's just a general dissatisfaction with the status quo politics. And I think, especially on the right side of politics, so people who vote VVD or perhaps NSC or D66, I think a lot of them would say, okay, this is enough. I want to vote for the extreme option. I want to vote for something completely different. And, I think that's where we need to also say, we are offering a completely different alternative and a completely different voice, but not in that direction.
Amazing. I see we have Renier coming in. I think that is really, really nice.
Yes, especially nice to maybe give us an input on the European elections.
I think so. Yes. For those of you online, Renier van Landslot, I'm not pronouncing that surname correctly.
Hey, can you hear us?
Yes.
Yeah, it's working? Okay, perfect. So hi everyone, we are with Renier.
Hello. Hi everyone. Great that you're watching this uneventful night.
So we just saw the exit polls.
Yes.
Volt is still at 2 seats at 940. What's your reactions and what's the next steps?
My first reaction is that I'm disappointed by the fact that an undemocratic, anti-democratic party who that wants to give zero support to Ukraine and that excludes a large part of the Dutch population by being so anti-Islam has become the biggest party. That is a massive disappointment. At the same time, I see this as a confirmation that what we are doing is incredibly necessary. We see this not only in the Netherlands, but also in other countries. And for me, this is not only a disappointment, but an additional motivator to keep doing what we're doing, but doing it even better. And I hope that many people in the Netherlands who are now in the political middle, think to themselves, we need to step up our game and become active ourselves. So everybody that sees this, if you want to be part of change, join Volt or join any other political movement that is for a green and better European future, because that's what we are for and that's what we will continue to give. We are here for the long run. I still believe that Volt is in the best position it has ever been in. This has been the best campaign so far, and it might not be reflected in the results. But if you look at our campaign program, it's truly innovative. It has concrete proposals that all the independent organizations in the Netherlands who do the calculations of the programs have looked at, and our innovative ideas are possible and achievable. We have the best ideas for a greener future and for a more fair society where everybody has equal opportunities. And that program is really innovative and great, and it's an amazing achievement that has been made in the 2 months after the cabinet fall. At the same time, we saw the biggest amount of individual donations to our campaign. We saw the most people on the street. We handed out the most flyers. We were in many significant debates. Laurens was already good, only became better. We had amazing candidates, so that gives me hope, even though this night is a bit shit. But maybe, so, excuse my French, I should not say that. But it is how I felt. So thanks for watching, and let's be motivated to continue our work and change Europe for the better.
Thank you for your positive words nonetheless. Tonight for Volt Netherlands, it's, yes, not a growth, but it's still maintaining what we have, and we have a strong electoral base that believe in our project. And Volt Netherlands is not alone, right? So we are Volt Europa, and what Volt Europa can do in the next steps to strengthen what Volt Netherlands has started.
Yeah, I think so. And I also see in many of the polls that were leading up to this result that our potential was from everything between 1 and 17 seats in the Dutch parliament. Many people think our ideas are the best ideas for the future. So I think that we can build on that, not only in the Netherlands, but in all European countries. We're going to do something truly unique next year in June when we participate in 15 to even perhaps 20 countries simultaneously if we organize ourselves well enough in the next 6 months. So my shout out to every Volter is stay positive, optimistic, work together, unite, and let's do something spectacular next year during the European elections.
Thank you very much, and see you in Paris.
See you in Paris. Yes, of course. I look forward to it. The biggest Volt event ever. We're gonna be there with, I think, almost 1,000 Volters. So that's gonna be amazing.
Thank you. Have a nice evening.
Have a nice evening, everybody. Bye bye.
Oh, that's so nice. I really like Renier's energy. I think the video was a bit delayed compared to the sound, but hopefully that'll be hopefully those watching and hearing will be okay. It was actually a very nice conclusion to tonight's live stream. I think it was very nice to hear Renier's analysis and reminding ourselves again, biggest small donations, so many people on the streets flyering, and I think reminding everybody that I spoke about before about how when it comes to climate change, we shouldn't leave it up to the consumer to change everything. But when it comes to social change, one person's impact does have a ripple effect. And I can tell you as a community organizer, as someone who who is on the other side trying to organize things, it makes such a big difference when somebody just raises their hand and says, "Oh, I can help with that." It's just a huge it makes you so happy and it makes such a big difference because there's so much that we can do when we're two people. There's so much that we can do when we're three people, and you can't even imagine what can be done when we're four people. So as Renier said, if you're sitting out there and you're like ready to go and you want to do something, reach out to anybody really. I think if you spin around, you'll find a vulture somewhere in your neighborhood. Or someone who knows a vulture. I think that's the other thing. But Carl, what do you think? What's your takeaway from Renier's talk just now?
I think we have every right to be sad and disappointed with his results, but I think we're part of optimists, and I think we have to be hopeful for a future. And I think we're disappointed with these results, but of course we pick ourselves up and we go with double the strength for the next elections. And I think combining Lawrence and Renier's message, we need to get more involved and we need to double our strength. But I think there's potential for our ideas to be heard. We're coming with new innovative ideas, and I do think we tackle these problems really well. And it's about getting across to our voters, talking to people, getting out there and making ourselves heard. uh, and so I'm sad, but I'm also optimistic for our future, and I think we've got important elections ahead of us. And my call is exactly like Reniers, this is a time to get active and participate because we have to. So I think if that's the message that we're leaving tonight is, yes, not the best night, but we need you now more than ever for the next elections.
Yeah, I agree. I really agree. And I think just a small takeaway as well is that it takes time for everybody to kind of transition from being I am not political to being political. My own journey started also quite slow, and I was 35 when I started getting political because I was like, oh, politics. Well, I mean, it's just not for me. Until I just realized that it has to be because I can't just be idle. I can't stand by and watch this happen. So once you come to that realization, then I think it's just a matter of trying out what works for you. And as we've heard tonight, so many people find a political home and a social home in Vault. So I really hope to see some signups, and people can of course sign up to Vault on our vault.team/join. So Vault VOLT.team. I think I should do it like this. /join. And you can sign up in whichever language is your preference. But as you said, let's wrap this up. Carl, thank you so much for talking tonight and being part of this. It's been so cool.
Yeah, no, thank you, and to Antoine and Sasha and everyone who organized the interviews. Maybe not the night we hoped for, but I think still a lot of positive energy and lots of hope and energy moving forward. So
exactly, yeah. And who knows? Maybe some people will actually jump from their other parties and go to Vault because they realize, it's much better.
I think so as well.
I will thank you both of you for this night because you animate so well. I just listened to you, and it was a very nice night, even though it's a setback for Volt Netherlands. As said Winston Churchill, success is losing again and again, while keeping his being enthusiastic. So let's continue to be enthusiastic for the next European elections because that's what we need, energy for those elections and to be strong after that.
Very, very true. Very, very true. Thank you so much, Antoine, and to Sasha. He's not here right now, of course, but we'll thank him in person in Paris. And if you're thinking about being in Paris this weekend, just follow the purple flags as Vault. You will find us. There'll be Volters everywhere across Paris this weekend. So, yeah, be part of the team. But thank you so much for tonight, everybody, for joining online. And these recordings will be here, so please continue to share our message and be part of the team.
Thank you. Bye.